Top of the afternoon. I am definitely not a licensed psychologist, and I'm no expert in white hatred and racism. I just understand that they exist, and they've existed since the beginning of time. Okay? And I believe they should be considered psychological disorders. Okay? Now, having said that, I've extensively studied U.S. history. I was a teacher, high school teacher. Went to school here pretty much all my life. I was indoctrinated like anybody else. And then one day I decided to wake up. That's all. And I want to share my great awakening journey with y'all because it's very easy to fall in the traps of American pride, nationalism, and all the other bullshit that is wrapped up to present, life in America as a special gift to the world. Americans are quick to promote, life in America as the ultimate. But let me take y'all back to the beginning. 1619. Well, before then, when these people who were rejected by the British government set sail to America, and when they arrived to these shores here, they were welcomed by the natives, and but they had something different in mind. Just like their international hero, Christopher Columbus, who was, displayed in his public, journals or diaries that he observed other races of people could easily be conquered. That was his observation. That's also interrelated to hatred and racism because Christopher Columbus was also welcome everywhere that he went. The natives welcomed him, and this is what happened when these European rejects showed up on the continent, on American shores. I mean, just the idea of calling ourselves American is arrogant enough because America is a continent, not a country. So the United States of America, but claiming the entire continent, claiming yourself to be an American, that in of itself is the arrogance of being an American, okay? But I want to start with these degenerates, these despicables who came here. They were welcome, and before the natives knew it, they were under siege. As if that wasn't enough, though, because the thing they did next was they read the history of the other despicables from France, England, Spain, Portugal, the Dutch. The history was there because you have to understand that the degenerates and despicables from America showed up late to the slave trade. So in 1619, after being welcome in Africa, just like they were welcome in America, they decided they wanted to illegally kidnap people from Africa and human traffic them to America to be enslaved so they can build their wealth for them. So that's the beginning of the country. It hadn't yet established itself as a country, as a nation or a republic. But for over 100 and something years, from 1619 to 1776, free labor. They wrote constitutions, all men are created equal, just conflicted shit, to make themselves sound good. They're to uphold the false image to the world that America was the best place to be, while still enslaving people who would help them build this country. And we're not even going to talk about, the heinous crimes committed against the very people that were working to help them build this country. Raping of women, the lynchings, and oh my God, the abhorrent, acts against black people. We're not going to talk about. I'm just trying to figure out what it is that we're celebrating. That's it. And but I have to give you perspective, because a lot of you are celebrating. You know what I'm saying? You celebrate whatever these people tell you to celebrate because you're indoctrinated, as I was at one point in time. You know what I mean? And I want y'all to understand that from 1776, July 4th, 1776, up till now, for 250 years, America has only managed to not engage in war for 19 years. That means they have terrorized the world for 231 years. That's a long time. But black people, the terrorism against black people has never stopped. As recent as 4th of July, we saw them. They were marching, face covered, on the train, the bus, intimidating, a sister, a strong sister who didn't even look intimidated by their weak presence, the presence of the cowards. You got to remember, these cowards, learn the ways of their daddies, because they're descendants, the bloodline of cowards doesn't stop, okay? But for 231 years, America terrorized the world. So just imagine the terror that black people have had to face for 400 years plus. 410, okay? Well, let me do the math right so y'all don't think I'm stupid. We're in 2026, so 407, all right? From 1619. Give or take, right? Because it didn't stop. On July 4th, they wanted to instill fear and intimidate. They haven't stopped. They haven't evolved from 1776 to 2026. You understand? And I need y'all to understand that. This is who they are. And they're celebrating 250 years of invasions, terror, the indiscriminate murder, genocide of people globally, declaring war on 10 different countries during that time, invading countries for no reason, Panama, Haiti, just because they think they could, just because there was something in these countries that they wanted. Panama, they wanted to build a canal there. Grenada, El Salvador, you name it. In Haiti, they saw, gold and, national treasures they wanted to steal. They saw oil in Iraq, just as they seeing oil in Venezuela. They feel like whatever they see belongs to them, right? So basically, that's what we're celebrating. We're celebrating these people who handed out, blankets laced with smallpox to the natives. We're celebrating that. We're celebrating these people glorifying themselves and calling it Thanksgiving after genociding the natives who welcomed them. And some of you are so indoctrinated, you celebrate their heinous behavior, their heinous history against other people. You understand? This is the culture. This is what it is. And it's almost like you want to put it all in a bowl, shake it up, and say, this is the greatness of America. Because they want you to believe that shit. Unfortunately, for them, quite a few of us are waking up. And we understand, the greater plan. And the greater plan is to keep you in that position where when you stand against their disgusting behavior, you're anti-American. Trump has enriched himself to the tune of $2 billion since he took office. He has pardoned nothing but criminals and has even turned his ability to pardon people into a business because it's a pay for freedom system. He gets paid, you get your freedom as long as you can afford it. Total corruption. But you know what we do? We point fingers at other people because we want to sell the world on this great image of America. And when we felt that that image wasn't strong enough, we chose a former, descendant of slaves. I don't know if you can call Obama that because his father was from Kenya and there weren't too many Kenyans, kidnapped and brought to the Americas for slavery. But anyway, they chose a puppet to solidify their position, to solidify their lies. That they have come a long way. We're now a melting pot. They chose Obama, to put a Band-Aid over the history of slavery and racism. And you all celebrated the symbolic victory they gave us, And now, 250 years later, 400 for black people, by the way, they've forgotten about all the people who have helped establish, this country from the very beginning. Because at the end of the day, their hatred trumps everything. They can't help who they are. Cowards in masks, cowards in funny hats, coneheads, whatever you want to call them. That's who they are. That's their root. I told you this is not an easy video to make because when you look at the history of America in totality, it's disgraceful. Not just against black people, against the entire world. Building an empire, right? Because that's what, America has become an empire, right? It's at the expense of the humanity of a lot of people. And unfortunately, not too many of us have the intellectual fortitude to understand that part of it. Again, I'm just asking. 250 years, 70 invasions, Tuskegee experiment where black men were injected with syphilis in that process, HIV and AIDS, crack epidemic, gonorrhea experiment in El Salvador, and the list goes on. I'm trying to figure out the greatness because the international hero, Christopher Columbus, Like I said, he was welcome everywhere that he went. The only thing on his mind at the time, according to his own diary, was genocide, conquest, domination. He wanted dominance over everybody. And America has managed to fulfill that, whatever you want to call it, dream. America has wanted dominance over the entire world. Even poor fishermen out of the Caribbean, fishing for a better life for their family, became victim of their dominance. Whether they want to say they were drug dealers, whatever. When you're an empire, you get to write the narrative. When you're an empire, you get to project your insecurities on other people. When you're an empire, you get to glorify yourself and sell it to the world as heroic. 250 years of what? Where's the greatness? Maybe they have it. I don't know. I don't know how they live in, but it sure as hell is not in, those masks or those funny hats, to instill fear and intimidation, burning down churches, killing innocent people. I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out. I told you this wasn't easy, but if you have a counter argument to show me the greatness, I'm all ears. I just want to know, what's the greatest thing that we have done in the last 250 years? Could they have accomplished that without the assistance of black people, Asian people, Hispanic people, all of whom they look down upon? Because right now, they've hijacked the 250th anniversary. You understand? Trump has hijacked America, period. Nobody else matters. It's white hatred. It's natural. Racism. It's tough living in my world because a lot of things that make sense to me don't make sense to a lot of people. And I understand that. I struggle with, relating to people who are indoctrinated and refuse to remove themselves from the indoctrinations, But I get it. Be proud. Just be an American. Because that's all it takes, right? Yeah, have a good one.